start. Thank you everyone for joining our webinar on how TV tracking can drive maximum ROI. We are very happy that you're here. So let's straight away start with the presentation. First of all, we would like to introduce ourselves. We are the experts for the discussion today. This is me. I'm Bindu Balakrishnan. I'm country head of DCM in India. To tell you a little bit about myself, I was an entrepreneur myself. I had my own startup in the mobile attribution space, which was acquired back in 2016, and I joined DCMN in 2016 and started DCM in India. So I've been with DCMN for over 7 years, and I still love being here for the company culture as well as the unique products that we offer, which we will discuss today. So that's a little bit about myself. And my co-panelist today is Gulnoosh. I'll let her introduce herself.
Hello, everyone. Yes, my name is Gulnoosh. I've been at DCMN for about 2 years now. I'm a product management manager responsible for our attribution platform, DC Analytics, and I'm quite excited to tell you about it today. So let's see.
Thank you, Gulnoosh. So let's move on. The agenda for today, first introduction, where we will tell you a little bit more about DCMN and who we are. Then jumping straight into the topic, the 4 pillars for driving ROI, return on investment. Then we will move to the foundation of everything, which is TV tracking. Then we move to DC Analytics, which is the technical term for our proprietary TV attribution tool. And Gulnoosh here will give you a live demo of how the tool works. And then, of course, we would like to discuss some case studies with you, show you how everything contributes to a very data-driven, ROI-driven campaign for our clients, the results that it delivers. And then, of course, I'm sure during the presentation, you will have a lot of questions in your mind. Please, as we go along, feel free to type it into the chat window, and we will discuss some of those questions towards the end. And coming in the last point on the agenda is the glossary, where we have descriptions or explanations for the various terminologies that we will use during the discussion. So that would be helpful to you. Okay, so let's move to the first topic, which is introduction. So here, this is DCMN. We are the growth marketing partner for digital brands. And you might be surprised we don't introduce ourselves as an agency. We don't like to call ourselves an agency because we believe that we are not your agency, but we are your partner. We want to be your partner in your growth journey all the way to when you become a unicorn. And we have actually done that with a couple of brands, but we will come back to it a bit later. We are an independently owned marketing, media, creation, and technology company with over 120 employees. I think what's also noteworthy is that each of us comes from a digital commerce and performance marketing expertise. We are headquartered in Berlin. We were founded in 2010, and since then we have spread to other parts of the world. We have offices in Munich, Amsterdam, Paris, London, New York, and in India, we are based out of Gurgaon. And our focus is your performance goals. So for us, we always think, okay, what is it that you want to achieve? Because your success is our success. So there are so many agencies out there, big, medium, small. We all know that. So everybody, I guess the first thing we should tell you is what differentiates us from classic agencies. I think a lot of it comes from our DNA. So actually DCMN, we didn't start as an agency. We started as an optimization tool. So we first started with DC Analytics, which we used to optimize TV campaigns for brands. But then we realized that we were sitting on so much data that we had collected from multiple clients, from multiple verticals, countries, products, geographies, that, it would make perfect sense for us to also get into media planning and media buying, because then we could leverage the data that we have to make the best plan for you. Then the next point we realized, as we ran multiple campaigns, that creatives play a huge role in the success of a campaign. They are one of the primary factors in driving good ROI. So we said, okay, we need to be able to give comprehensive solutions to our clients. And with that in mind, we started creation and production within DCMN. And lastly, of course, what ties everything together is the strategy. So you can see we are a full-fledged agency. So we started with optimization or a tool. We ended with, giving you all 360-degree services. But our core has always remained what we started with, which is, ROI. It's part of our DNA. And then, of course, we are media agnostic. So we don't start a discussion with a client with any particular media in mind. We do a very deep analysis of A, what is the goal of your campaign? 2, who's your target group? Who are you trying to reach? What media are they consuming? And then, of course, your budgets and all this and what your competition is doing. There are so many data points. We do a very, very thorough analysis before we decide what media you should use. Because for us, media is just a means to an end. And these are some of the clients that we worked with. So as you can see, we have worked with over 450 digital brands worldwide, having run campaigns then in more than 40 countries. Some of these are Indian brands, some are international brands. Maybe you don't know all of them. So moving on, maybe it's, I can show you some of the Indian brands that we worked with. So here you can see that we have worked with multiple brands across verticals. This is not an exhaustive list. There are more, but we just put some most important ones here. So you can see quite a number of gaming brands. So Mad Over Poker, Fan Fight, Mobile Premier League, Junglee Games, PokerStars, Ace23, Winzo. In the EdTech space, Upgrad, in D2C, WakeFit, Mama Earth. In the fintech space, Bank Bazaar, Policy Bazaar. Then there's Cars24. There are many, many brands, and then Truecaller, etc. When I say we have worked with these brands, it means that we have done everything for them from strategy to media planning, buying, tracking, and optimization. Now let's look at DCMN's approach to trackable TV campaigns, which this is the right time for us to discuss the next topic on the agenda, that is the 4 pillars for driving ROI. So there are main 4 pillars, which you always have to address when you want to plan a data-driven, ROI-driven TV campaign. The first pillar is choosing the right type of TV campaign to meet your campaign goals. So actually, there are so many different types of campaigns you can do. Your goal can be very different. So one brand might come to us and say, a more mature brand, let's say, they'll say, you know what, we don't need performance at this point. We are getting a lot of visits and installs organically, but we want to always stay at the top of mind of our consumers. So we want to build awareness. So this is what we call the branding TV campaigns. And on the other end of the spectrum are brands which come to us, mostly young brands, Series A funded brands, which say, hey, we are still in the growth stage. We don't have huge budgets. And for us, every rupee has to count. And we want to achieve maximum traction most efficiently. So we call these performance campaigns. But of course, there are brands which say, hey, mostly brand in the growth stage who have finished the performance, but haven't reached the biggest leagues yet. They say, we want both. When we run a TV campaign, we want to build top of mind awareness. We want branding, but at the same time, I have to watch my bottom line. I have to make sure that my CEO is saying that I need to also show him numbers. I want to see installs. I want to see more visits, and I want to drive these at the most optimized CPVs and CPIs. So in order to address this bucket of clients, DCMN actually coined a term. You must not have heard of this before. We call it brandformance. So brandformance TV campaigns are campaigns which have elements of branding. So it builds top of mind awareness. At the same time, it also drives performance at efficiently, maybe not as efficiently as a pure performance campaign, but quite efficiently. And from an Indian perspective, having run hundreds of TV campaigns over the past 7 years, I would say that most of the brand, 80% of the brands fall under this brandformance bucket. Now, moving on to the next pillar, once you have decided what your goal from the campaign is, let's say we want to do brandformance, then you have to choose the right channel mix to achieve this. So there are a few things we always keep in mind when we choose our channels. One is, of course, learnings from our numerous previous campaigns. Like I said, we have run hundreds of TV campaigns in India with multiple brands addressing multiple target groups, age groups, geography, from all India campaigns to maybe a campaign only in Karnataka or Maharashtra. Affluence levels, for those who the NCCS ABC classification, the NCCS A, which is more affluent, to something like gaming, which addresses category A, B, and C. So we have so much data that we look at our past data and say, hey, which is the other brand which we ran a campaign for, which had very similar goals, TG, etc. So we use these learnings. The second thing we look at is an affinity index. So for those of you who don't know what affinity is, in simple terms for TV, we say that affinity is the likelihood of your target group watching a particular channel in comparison with the universe. So it's basically a skew towards your target group. So of course, we only want to pick channels which have a very high affinity to your target group in order to avoid spillage. We generally go with affinities of over 90%. Then based on CPM, now this must feel strange, those of you who have already run TV campaigns, you must be wondering why CPM for TV. I know in India, most of the other classic agencies only look at channels from a reach and GRP perspective, but we calculate CPM for every single TV channel based on your target group. And this is a very important metric for us when we plan your TV campaign, because it's all about ROI and efficiency. Then, of course, based on the CPMs and past campaigns and the response rates we can expect from the channels, we also know roughly what cost per visit or cost per install we can expect. And we use this as an important benchmark while choosing channels. And last but not the least, experience. I would say 0.1, 2, 3, 4 are not useful if you don't have the experience to interpret this data correctly. So we have a team of experts who have looked at multiple campaigns. So we use our experience to actually draw data and look at past campaigns, etc., to make the best TV plan for you. Moving on to cluster definitions. This is very important for us in terms of defining what channels to use to achieve a particular goal. So we have, split all the TV channels into 3 buckets. The first one is an awareness channel. These are large channels with a market share of over 3%, which have a high reach and GRPs. You must wonder, large channel 3%, that's nothing. But if you know, India has over 850 channels, which is a lot. My colleagues back in Europe are pretty shocked when I tell them we have more than 850 channels, but we are a large country with multiple languages. So 3% is a lot. And some examples of such channels could be the large GC channels, the general entertainment channels like Sony TV, Star TV, Zee TV, Colors, etc. Then on the other end of the spectrum are what we call frequency channels in blue here. These are much smaller channels which have a market share of less than 1%. They are quite performance focused, deliver low CPMs, but at the same time, because the reach is low, they're not very scalable. So you cannot keep using the channels for 15 campaigns expecting it to deliver all the time, right? So some examples would be most of the English channels fall under this because the English channels have limited viewership in India compared to Hindi. Then your music channels, your infotainment channels like GC, like History TV, Discovery, etc. And between these 2 buckets is a volume channel, which have market share of 1 to 3%. And they actually have characteristics of both awareness channels and frequency channels. So they drive awareness, maybe not as much as the awareness channels, but quite close. At the same time, they also deliver in terms of performance. So examples for this would be your movie channels, maybe Sony Max, etc., or large Hindi news channels like Zee News, NDTV, Republic Bharat, etc. So these fall under volume channels. And we decide based on the goal of the campaign, whether performance, branding, or brand performance, we decide how to mix these 3 buckets of channels to deliver best ROI for you. Now moving to pillar 3. Pillar 3 is all about using an agile approach in 3 phases to grow your business most efficiently. So here, the first phase, we call it the launch phase. This is where you can assume that this would be your first campaign with us. And what we like to do here is not to bet too big on anything, because though we have a lot of data from other clients and we've made a pretty solid plan, but you are unique, right? So we need to make sure that all our assumptions, etc., are correct. So we don't want to invest too much money into one large channel, or pick maybe a big impact property like an Indian Idol, or take the topmost program, advertise a lot during prime time, because these are expensive decisions. They eat up a lot of your budget, and it also prevents us from distributing your budget efficiently across genres, channels, day parts, weekdays, so that we can get maximum learning. So in the launch phase, we are very careful about keeping the distribution even without making any not bad, I would say big bets without really knowing whether it's working for you or not. Then we move to the next phase. You can call this maybe your TV campaign 2, 3, and 4, where based on the launch phase, we start making some more decisions. So if, say, infotainment is working very well for you, we had used History TV. This time we will introduce National Geographic. If we see that weekends are working better for you, we will increase the spots in the weekend. And maybe we tested Maharashtra, Karnataka, and Tamil Nadu. Maharashtra did not deliver. Then we say, okay, we take out Maharashtra, keep Tamil Nadu and Karnataka, maybe introduce a West Bengal into your mix. So this is the learning phase. And once we have thoroughly figured out exactly what's working for you and what's not working for you, we go to the next stage, which is the scale phase. This is where we actually start making the bigger bets, because now we are confident that we know exactly what's working for you and what every rupee that we invest is going to deliver for you. And with this 3-stage approach, what you will see is your key KPI. It could be CPV, CPI, would be optimized, and you will see it getting lesser and lesser with each campaign. And we have some case studies to showcase this. We will show that to you a bit further in the presentation. Moving on, pillar 4. Like I said, you can have the best media plan, best strategy, best buying conditions, everything. But if your creative is not up to the mark, then the campaign is not going to do well. So we have seen multiple studies which prove how important creatives are for your marketing success. We have learnings which shows us that a high quality creative can quadruple your profit. So I would say, while don't go for the biggest creative agencies out there charging a lot of money, but there are a lot of young niche creative agencies which do wonderful job with high quality production, and they're not too expensive. So I would say don't make sure that your creative is really high quality. It gives a lot more credibility to your campaign. People trust you a lot more when they see that the quality of the creative is good. Secondly, we have also seen that brand messaging outperforms performance messaging 80% of the time. So TV is a highly cluttered space. There are a lot of TVCs out there, commercials out there all the time. Your brand messaging has to stand out. Otherwise, it'll get lost in the clutter. So if you just say, hey, download my app, it's not going to work. You have to give a little bit more of context, who you are. And as you know, we Indians are a highly emotion-driven group, and we really like to see a good story and a good heart to the brand, and that really works. And this is true not only of India, I think rest of the world as well. All this because data also shows us that 47% of a brand's sales uplift comes from advertising, comes from the creative. So like I said, you can do a wonderful job with everything else, but if your creative isn't really good, it probably won't work as well as you expected. And, there are various ways to make sure, rather than go with a gut feeling that, hey, creative A is better than creative B and C, you can do what's called creative testing, where at a storyboard stage, you can use a panel, show them the storyboard, either a qualitative panel or a quantitative via digital, via online questionnaire, and use that to find out which creative resonates the most with your target group. This is a short way of making sure that your creative is up to mark before you spend all that money on production. Okay, but 4 pillars, very beautiful, a nice story, but every pillar needs a strong foundation, and so do our 4 pillars. They also need a strong foundation. And this strong foundation is TV tracking and optimization. So moving on, before we jump to the actual tracking part, I would like to explain some of the terminologies that we use in this. First is direct response. So you will, once Gulnush starts showing you how the tool works and gives you some background information on the tool, you will hear the term direct response. So direct response is the response to every single TV spot that you air, in the attribution window of 5 to 10 minutes. That means from the moment your TV spot starts airing, anywhere between 5 to 10 minutes after that is called the direct response window. So we use this to calculate the CPIs and CPVs for each spot. And this is the information that we use to optimize your media plan. But the impact of your TV spot doesn't end in those 5 or 10 minutes. Now, we are maybe 100 people in this group or more. Not every one of us is going to go visit the website as soon as we see a spot. Many of us are probably busy with something else. Maybe, the kids are doing homework, you're cooking, or maybe you're exercising while watching TV. But you do notice a spot and you say, hey, this looks interesting. I want to explore this. So you might go and visit the website or download the app the same evening, maybe in the weekend, a week from now, whatever. But all these are still the impact of your TV spot. So it's not correct if we don't count you, because otherwise we're only counting partial success, right? So all these people who visit your website after seeing the spot 1 day, 2 day, 3 weeks later, they fall under brand uplift. So each of these measurements, so we measure both, and each of these measurements serve different purposes, but they're both extremely valuable for optimization because one cannot be complete without the other. Then the other thing I also wanted to tell you about is that while most agencies will come to you with a TV plan and tell you, oh, that's a GRPs that this plan is going to deliver, or this is the reach that this plan is going to deliver, we go further, many steps further, where we will tell you what to expect from your TV campaign in terms of visits and installs, and what is the CPI or CPV that you can expect from the campaign. And we always forecast it in 3 scenarios: the conservative case, realistic case, and optimistic case. The conservative case is, or let's first discuss realistic. Let's discuss reality first. So in this case, this is when your media plan does a job very well. Every genre and channel that you picked works well for you, as expected rather, and also your creative, people like your creative, then your CPIs and CPVs and the number of visits and installs will fall in the realistic case. Sometimes it can happen that things didn't go according to plan. Our analysis said that GEC is very much the right set of channels for you. We invested quite a bit in GEC, but something happened in the world, maybe a flood somewhere, a forest fire. I mean, we hear that a lot these days, climate change, and a lot of viewership shifts from the GEC channels to the news channels. So the numbers that we expected from GEC didn't happen. It can also be that the weather is very beautiful, everyone is outside, nobody's watching TV in that week. It could also be that your creative, we all loved it, but the audience didn't like it or didn't like it as much. So these things can happen despite our best efforts, in which case you will end up in the conservative case in dark purple here. And then the blue, the optimistic case, is what we call a perfect storm, where 1 + 1 becomes 3. Everybody loves your creative, all the channels over deliver, and then you have CPIs and CPVs much lower than what you expected. CPVs much lower. Now the question might be, okay, so what can I expect? Will I fall under conservative? What happens most of the time? I would like to say that 85 to 90% of the time, we end up somewhere between the realistic and optimistic case. I think in all these years, we have had 2 campaigns where we actually ended up in the conservative case, but otherwise we're generally either realistic or between realistic and optimistic. So these are some metrics that we use to calculate, we forecast. So contacts is the impressions. You can compare it to digital impressions that your TV plan generates. Direct response is a percentage that we think out of this total contacts, how many will respond and visit the, download your app. And direct response is the actual app installs that you get within the 5 to 10 minute attribution window. This helps us calculate CPIs. So again, CPIs in 3 scenarios. In the realistic case, you can see the CPI is 225 rupees, a bit high because we're only looking at the 5 to 10 minute attribution window here. And then, like I said, we also calculate the brand CPI, which is overall impact of the TV campaign. Here we've kept it a very conservative 2x, but generally it's 4 to 5x when we run campaigns. So CPI is under 100. But again, it depends upon your product. If you're a gaming brand or you're a food brand where there are repeat orders, your CPIs will be low. But if you are a D2C brand selling mattresses or selling cars or buying cars like Cars24, of course, you don't buy a car or you don't sell your car every 2 weeks, or you might not go start studying, pick up a course every second day, right? Whereas a biryani or pizza, you might order every week, right? So these influence your CPIs quite a bit. This forecast is for a TV campaign we did at a national level. However, our tool is also able to measure the impact of your TV campaign at a regional level as well. So not only can we track at a national level, HSM level, we can also specifically track only for Karnataka, only for Tamil Nadu, only for Maharashtra. As you know, in India, oftentimes when we run these campaigns, there are the Hindi and English channels, but we also have Kannada channels and Tamil channels and Marathi channels. So our tool is able to measure this separately and show you CPIs and CPVs at a regional level as well. So here is another example. This is from a TV campaign in Karnataka, or rather forecast that we did for a client. Now, I think you're also quite eager to actually know more about the tool that does all the magic and gives us CPIs and CPV. So our tool, which is called DC Analytics. So I will hand over now to Gulnush. She's our expert. So over to you, Gulnush.
Thank you, Bindu. It's always so exciting to see how you help people achieve their full potential. On that note, I'm going to go through the attribution platform that we've got. And we mentioned earlier that this is how we measure that achievement. Before starting, I wanted to also mention that in case you have any questions about anything that I'm saying, feel free to drop some questions in the question box and we will get back to them at the end of the webinar as well. So let's start with how this generally works. In the simplest way, if I want to basically put it in a nutshell, it starts with tracking your traffic. Now, if it's your website, we're going to directly track it with our SDK tracking SDK. And if you're actually measuring on your app, then we have partners from mobile measurement partners that we integrate with. And one way or another, we get your data into our platform. Once we have your data, we basically overlay it with the TV schedule. And with that, as simple as that, we have your TV KPI. So to describe what that as simple as that means, we can go a bit deeper into a graph like this. So let's have a quick look into this. This is a visualization showing your, let's say, web traffic throughout the year. Doesn't matter which season, doesn't matter what's happening. It's just a general flow coming on as life goes on. And as you see, there are ups and downs depending on everything else that is happening around it. So we establish a baseline. That would be in this picture, that would be the lower line, the one in blue. That is trying to show that that's basically calculating it minute by minute to make sure that we can avoid any seasonality differences and such, and have an idea what traffic usually you expect anyway. Beside that, we also calculate an impact threshold, which is the second line in green. And the idea there is that we don't want to just get too excited as soon as you have 2 extra visits and say that was TV. And we also don't want to miss any impacts that we got from TV. So as much as it's important not to underestimate, it's also important not to overestimate. And that's why we have this threshold, which is how we basically make sure that we don't overestimate, as in it needs to, the traffic, the spike needs to be higher than the threshold so that we can say all right, we have some TV impact. Now, once these two are defined, as I mentioned, we are going to also have the overlay of the schedule. So let's say spot A is one spot where one of your advertisements went on air on a channel at a time, whenever, wherever that could be. And we have the spot period or the direct response window, the 5 to 10 minutes that Bindu explained earlier. And that is something that you can also customize based on how you know your ad and how altogether you've decided that all right, this is a longer ad, so it may need a bit more time to digest or shorter. But usually the 5 to 15 minute is the default that research shows that is the best. And the idea is that here, as soon as we have a spike within the window above the threshold, we can define the impact of the TV. And this is the most detailed that it gets. And from here, we start building it up, basically. So we can put these together and then tell you that, like, all right, it seems like you're getting your best results from this specific genre or this specific channel. You can basically aggregate it on so many different levels so that you can learn and optimize for your future campaigns. Based on these results, you can basically see that, like, all right, so it seems like all my spots, that most of my spots who were happening on weekend actually worked better than the weekday, or the other way around, because people didn't want to work and they wanted to watch TV. But one way or another, these aggregations are going to help you optimize for your future campaigns. And what is quite exciting is that the users, the direct clients, will have access to the platform themselves. So as soon as the time has passed, the TV ad has aired, and the schedule has been uploaded, all these default reports will be pre-populated automatically. So you can basically go on the platform, play around with the different sections that we will see soon, and then actually learn more about your results. Automatically from these default reports, you get also a few different important KPIs, something like the CPV. So you have the idea of how much you spent. And then, you know, like, all right, so this is how much I spent. This is how many people came extra to my website because of this ad, or installed my app because of this ad. And then this is my cost per visit, or similar to that, cost per lead or cost per order, or basically in this point, the sky is the limit. Any metric that you care about as this specific client with your specific setting, we can basically set up and make sure that we can give you all these metrics as cost per metrics and so on. And this is what you will see immediately on the tool, on the platform. You can just go ahead and play around with it yourselves as well. But we don't stop there. We will go even beyond that, and our colleagues internally will basically go to the raw data, go to the specific spots. So at the lowest level that you can say, like, all right, this is specific ad, which was aired at this time, this day, before this specific program on this channel, actually brought me, like, I don't know, 2 extra web visits or however many. They go into that, they study it way deeper, and they come up with these PowerPoint reports that they will share with you, which not only includes the actual data and the visualization and everything, but also it involves their insights as well, which helps you much more to actually understand how to react to this data, because having the data is one thing, reading and understanding the data is another, and then it makes sure that in future, the next flights are even better as we go on. Now, we've talked, and it's all nice and fun in theory, but let's also have a look and see how it would actually look in reality. So I will share my screen. And this is DC Analytics today. I'm starting from this page because this is one of the first pages. There are multiple different levels on the tool, but for the sake of this demo today, we're going through a few different pages with you guys. And the idea is that this is the first page that you can actually look into the data and basically read it relevant to the TV. So this is the page that we call brand traffic. Brand traffic is something that we define as any traffic coming through your website or your app, which has the potential to be TV. It doesn't mean it's immediately TV. It has the potential, as in, like, it's in the right region. So obviously, like, if you're serving your ad in India, and I'm sitting here in Germany, that doesn't necessarily mean that I watched the ad. So it's from the right region, and it's also cleaned up from anything that we obviously know that this came from social media, this came from a newsletter. So this will be the first view that you already see. And ideally, by the end of your campaign, what you can see here is that if you look at it from before the campaign, during the campaign, and after the campaign, you should be able to see that, like, your brand traffic altogether went higher during the campaign, potentially came a bit lower after the campaign ended, but still stayed higher than before the campaign. So here what you see is that you have the brand sessions in blue and non-brand in red. So you can see the difference. If you're running multiple channels for your marketing, you can already see that, like, oh, all right, actually that's my social media campaign or whatsoever. And then from here, let's say now you have uploaded your schedule. Now you actually, the TV airings have gone live, and now you want to see the results. You have the dashboard, which is your overall metrics. Now, one thing I didn't mention, and I would like to quickly mention, that is, as you see, this is the demo data. I'm mentioning this for two reasons, both for confidentiality, so this is not any real client's data, and on the sense that it's no real data. So the numbers are not necessarily what you may expect. So on the dashboard, you can already see a media summary. So you get the context on, like, all right, so from this stage to this stage, I actually spent this much money and I got this many people in my reach. So you have an idea already from your media spec, like what is the context, what are you setting up? And then from then on, everything has to do with the impact of the TV. Now, the first line is always the baseline. So whether it's the sessions or the installs, or actually both, if you actually have both a website and an app, where you see, for instance, like, all right, so I had 20,000 extra sessions based on this campaign from the TV, which the net cost, so if I do the division, the net cost per session would be around this, and then that's my response rate. So according to like the 12 million people that could watch this many actually reacted. So this is my response rate. And we have similar KPI for any custom event that you set up. So this demo KPI is a representative for what we mentioned earlier with any custom events, like orders, lead, purchases, registration. So anything that you set up based on your specific needs. And this is great. You get a summary, but you can even go deeper. So you can go to these out-of-the-box reports that we mentioned earlier. So we have a few different ones. I will just briefly mention what these are about, and then we will go into one to just show you how this actually looks in when you interact with it. So you will have the analysis by week, which can show you like how your campaign was performing week over week. So you can see the progress of it. By flight, once you have multiple campaigns going on, and over time, you want to be able to compare to the last one and then see how you're getting better. Day part and weekday, the ones that will show you that, like, all right, so right now, it seems like if I air in the morning is better than the afternoon, or the other way around, different days. What I've seen many of, like most of my colleagues mostly use are the channel, so that you can actually go around and see which specific channel is bringing you the best use. It doesn't necessarily mean the highest number of people or the cheapest prices, but like all together, like what is actually the most efficient way to bring people to your website or app. And we have the creative analysis, which lets you A/B test different creatives. So let's say you want to look into your creatives. You've had different creatives running this round, and you want to see which one is doing better for you. One thing to mention is that in this case, for this test case, they have set it up as, let's say you have 4 different creatives, 2 of them are English and 2 of them are Hindi, and each of them have a set of 15 seconds versus 30 seconds. Now, this is nothing hard-coded. You get to choose what you want to test. It could be language, it could be length, it could be certain images, certain ideas or concepts behind it. So it could be basically anything you imagine. And let's say if you have a look here, you can immediately, so we have, let's say, the uplift traffic and the response rate. So looking at the response rate, you can immediately see that in this case, the English creatives seem to have been doing like much better than the Hindi ones. Not quite sure if this is realistic in that market, but just in case of the demo. So they have been having a higher response rate while actually having a lower CPV. So it seems like in this case, you can basically learn from the graph that, oh, my English, regardless of how long they are, it seems like in this market that I was working in this, with this specific creatives, it seemed like the English creative worked 3 times better, cheaper, and so on. And so maybe for the next one, I will only use this one. Now, this could be in any other case as well. So yeah, as we mentioned, you can basically choose what you're going through. Now, you have a similar idea also, you have similar graphs also when it comes to all those custom events that you have set up. It might be that one creative is actually doing much better with attracting people to your website, but one creator brings closer people to your niche so that actually they end up converting way more. So you have all these details available at your disposal, and you can just make decisions based on them. And in any of these cases, whether it's any of these analysis or analysis by spot, which is actually that full detail analysis that like it takes you back to any spot level and says this is specific spot brought you this much, you always also have the raw data on the bottom too. So technically you can actually export it, go ahead with it, and do any other sort of the studying that you would like to it. Now, this is the extent of the demo today. Obviously, we also have a demo account and all, but what I wanted to mention is that, as I mentioned earlier, this is the DC Analytics today. Now, we've been working hard improving it even better than this with a brand new UI and everything, which is actually coming out very soon. But in the meantime, before it's out, we would like to offer you an exclusive sneak preview into the next version of the platform through our ongoing UX feedback calls. So in a follow-up email after the webinar, we will share a link with you. For those of you who are interested, you can sign up and we can get on a call with you, go through the next version of the UI that we're building, and we would much appreciate your feedback. And that would be a lovely experience, both sides, hopefully. On that note, I would like to give the stage back to Bindu, where she can show you more about how to actually use this information in real life.
Okay, thank you, Gulnush. That was really quite thorough and interesting. I'm sure for the others even more who have seen it for the first time. Now, moving on to the next phase of the demo is done. So we move now to the case studies. So we have shown you the 4 pillars that we use while planning a TV campaign. We discussed tracking, but we always say proof of the pudding is in its taste or how it tastes. So after doing everything, what does it actually deliver to the client? So we have multiple case studies, but we have picked 3 for you today across different verticals. So the first case study is for a biryani brand, an online biryani delivery client. They're not probably, there are so many out there, but this one is a large brand which is present all over India. And when the client came to us, they wanted to increase the visits to their website, so performance, but at the same time, they wanted to increase their brand awareness. So this brought us right to a brand performance approach for this client. And their main KPIs were CPVs, cost per visit, and cost per order. And the target group was male, female, 22 to 50, a difficult target group in terms of NCCS, because it was NCCS A and just B1, B2. So a little bit niche. But we took on the challenge, and as you can see, the results on the right-hand side, on top, the optimizations in the CPV. So from flight 1, which is campaign 1, to campaign 2, we increased their visits by 34%. Now you might say, hey, put in more money, take more channels. Of course, your visits would increase. Yes, true, but the goal is to do it efficiently. So we increased their visits by 34%, but at the same time, we lowered their cost per visit by 31%. So that's on the visits, but of course, visits is nothing if it doesn't convert. So at the bottom, you have the conversions. So from flight 1 to flight 2, the orders increased by a whopping 74%. At 47% lower cost per order. Now, it doesn't happen with every brand. I would say the campaign did very, very well, but what also helped, of course, it's a biryani. So during our 1-month campaign, I'm sure people ordered the biryani more than once. But despite that, a 74% jump in orders and 47% lower CPO meant a very, very happy client. And our association with them went on for many years after that. So moving to the next case study. This is for an EdTech brand. Remember, I told you, it can vary. The product and CPVs and CPIs can vary a lot depending upon the product. So this EdTech brand is not a brand which addresses the K-12 group, which is your kindergarten to 12th grade, but actually the university students who are preparing for exams, as well as working professionals who are looking at upskilling or cross-skilling themselves, and the challenge for the client was not awareness. They had very high levels of awareness. Problem for them was consideration. So that was the challenge for us, or the challenge they set for us. And as you can see on the right, we did optimize the CPV from flight 1 to 2, but by 4%. That's not a lot, but that was not the goal. But however, you can see that we managed to optimize the cost per lead by 21%. And for a brand which has a high cost per lead, because it's a niche brand, like I mentioned earlier, it's not every day that you decide to do a course that today in data science, and 1 week later I say, oh, I want to do a course in, I don't know, computer programming. It doesn't happen like that. These are more serious people who do courses for 3 to 6 months or a year at a time. So a reduction, so the ticket size is quite high. So a reduction of 21% in cost per lead was a huge achievement. Needless to say, the client is still with us after 3 years. Moving on, completely different vertical, gaming. As you saw when I showed you the different clients that we work with, we have worked, I would say, with almost all the top gaming brands in India. The challenge here was to drive website visits, but also increase brand awareness. So again, brand formats, slightly wider TG. So not as niche as the previous one, because people can play game multiple times during a week. And you can see the results we drove were fantastic. So from flight 1 to flight 2, we increased their visits by a huge 138%. And from flight 2 to flight 3 by a further 56%. So that was a huge jump for them. So, and in terms of CPV, from campaign 1 to campaign 2, we decreased their CPV by 61%. And flight 2 to flight 3 by 10%, because I think we optimized so much in the first one that there wasn't that much room left, but we still managed to decrease the CPVs further by another 10%. So those are the 3 case studies. We have so many more, but of course we have only so much time. So now you might wonder what's next. So DCMN as an agency, I think we're quite unique in the fact that we have quite a large product and tech team, and we never like to stand still. We are always looking at how can we improve the offerings we give you? How can we do even better for you? How can we even further increase the ROI of your campaigns? How can we help you more? How can we give you more data? How can we empower you more? So hold your breath. What's coming next from the DCMN product stable? It's trackable CTV campaigns. So as you know, you always thought only digital was trackable. Now you know the TV is trackable. But of course, I think a lot of marketers are worried, especially the ones who are catering to the more niche NCCSA, that there are cord cutters. I'm sure some of us in this room are only on Netflix and Amazon and other OTT platforms. And the best way to reach this group is through connected TV. You know, how do we measure that? And while there is some measurement available, it all limits to only click-through rates, etc. Nobody will tell you what happened to on your website, or how many installs came out of it, or further into the conversion funnel. So we are trying to solve this problem right now, and we are working on it. And I think there will be an announcement soon on how we can we can also track CTV. And our goal, or what we are planning to do, is integrate the CTV tracking into DC Analytics, so that you have TV tracking and CTV tracking under one single platform, which allows us to look at incremental reach, integrated CPV, separate CPVs, and optimize at both levels. So that is coming soon. And finally, I think Gulnush and I have spoken a lot, and I'm sure along the demo you had questions must have come to your mind. So in this section, we will pick a few questions out of the lists that we have to address them. And I'm sure we cannot answer all the questions, but please do feel free to reach out to us after this webinar through email. We will share the details a bit later, and we would be happy to answer any other further questions. So let me take a look at the question. Okay, the one question is, do you need BARC data for the analysis? Very good question, because as you can imagine, our tool is directly connected to your website through the SDK. So we are receiving website visits and installs through APIs in real time. But of course, what the tool doesn't know is the spot airing time. On what channel, at what time, date did the spot air. And for this, we are dependent on Bark. And so, yes, we do need Bark data. So during the campaign or after the campaign, we extract this data from Bark. So exact channel name, spot airing time, which spot aired, what was the length of the spot, when did the spot start airing, when did it end, what is the reach GRP. So we collect all this data and we create what is called a schedule. It's an Excel format, and then we upload it into the tool. And then the tool has this aha moment, because now it also has the details of the spot airing, and it puts both together, like Gulnosh explained during the presentation, and that generates the reports. So yes, we do need Bark data for the analysis. Gulnosh, I will hand over to you to pick a question, maybe more along the product line, product topic, and answer.
Happy to. All right, so I see there's a question if there is any year limit on the data that DC Analytics can keep to analyze. We won't remove your data. So as long as we're working with you and we are tracking for you, as long as you want us, we can keep your data and continue using it for analysis. The analysis on the spot. So when you're running a campaign, the analysis always uses the current traffic, so that we can make sure that we are not bringing in any seasonality differences, because we don't want to set a baseline in summer and then analyze your campaign in winter. However, when you want to, let's say, compare, you would always want to be able to see, like, all right, so this is how I did this summer. How did I do last summer? How did I do last winter? In that sense, your data is all going to be there, so no need to worry about that. There's one more that I can immediately jump into, and that is a question on personalization. Can we personalize data on DC Analytics according to our need of the time? So you can always add more custom events, for instance. So let's say the day that you were setting up for your first campaign, you only had registrations, while now you're actually selling it and you're having an e-commerce and you can add your purchase. So you can always add or remove custom events. So that is always possible. Ideally, it needs to happen, any change needs to happen before the campaign runs. But in other cases, we can be flexible as well. And with some other metrics, you can still be flexible. Let's say, you know, that like your product is something that actually needs much more time for people to discuss and decide whether they want to buy or not. So you can have a longer conversion window, but then at some other clients may think like, oh no, we are actually looking into a subscription to newsletter, and that's much easier. So we can have it shorter. So to a large extent, I would say it is definitely personalizable. There is also a question on overlapping spots, which is very interesting. As mentioned earlier, as bad it is to underestimate your campaign, is also bad to overestimate your campaign. Both are wrong. So we try not to do that. So the tool defines something called the spot score, which is based on a combination of different things, like how big the spot is, when in the campaign it exists, and all those things. And then based on that, for the overlapping part of the spot, it would basically redistribute the traffic to the different spots. So let's assume you have two different spots overlapping. There is a part of each of them which is not overlapping. That part is easy. We just attribute them to the relevant spots. And then there is another part where there is the overlap. At that point, we use the spot score to make sure that each of the spots will get attributed as much as their weight. Would you like to?
Yes, to add to Gulnosh's point on overlapping spots, I remember for a client, for a gaming client, we once ran a campaign with 85 channels, which is a lot. And I think the total number of spots in that campaign was 30,000. So you can imagine there were definitely, a lot of overlaps. Sometimes there's not 2 spots. Sometimes we had 4 spots overlapping. But because of the algorithm and how it is set, we are easily able to attribute or distribute the spots to all the 4 spots, even if they're partially overlapping or fully overlapping. I will pick another question. So there's a question which said, how does DCMN differentiate the impact brought about by TV from other digital campaigns we run concurrently? So very good question. Of course, it's not that every time you run your TV campaign, you put a stop to all your digital campaigns. That wouldn't work. But if you remember when Gulnush took you through DC Analytics, there was a screen with bars, which were half in blue or 3/4 in blue and partly in red. So what the tool does, so of course, when our SDK is integrated into your website, it records all data, irrespective of whether it came from a digital source or organically, right? But what the tool does is looking at the source, from where did this traffic come? And at the first step, it filters everything that came from a digital source. So anything that came from your YouTube marketing, your OTT, from email marketing, your Google ads, your Facebook ads, social media, whatever. The first step is to filter that. And when everything that we discussed, the baselining, the uplift, the CPV, CPI, is only calculated on the brand traffic. So whatever TV digital campaigns you might be running concurrently at the same time does not influence the accuracy of the reports. I think that's about how much time we have to actually answer the questions, but there are so many more interesting questions. Please don't be disappointed. Please do write to us and we will be more than happy to actually answer those questions as well. Now coming back to how you can reach us. So if you would like to know more, if you want to know more about the tracking per se, you can download our white paper on DC Analytics, and you can send us an email and we will be happy to send you the white paper. I think on the screen, you should also now see a poll where you have a choice where you can actually say, hey, I would like to have the white paper. Otherwise, if you say white paper, well and good, but what DCMN explained sounds very interesting to me. I want to know more about the TV campaign itself, or maybe you're planning one and you would like to talk to us, please do reach out on hello@dcmn.in. And finally, like we said at the beginning, there's also the glossary where you have all the terminologies that we use, including the affinity, GRP, reach, contact, CPM. So this is a place for you to see what is the definition, as well as how do we calculate these metrics. So you can take a look at them. And yes, that brings us to the end of the presentation. I would like to thank you for your patience and your time. We really enjoyed presenting to you, and we look forward to hearing from you. So I wish you a very nice afternoon, and we are not too far away from the weekend. So a happy weekend in advance. Yeah, thank you, and talk to you soon.
Thank you, everyone. Have a lovely day.